In the silent, pre-dawn blackness of June 6th, 2025, a new form of warfare reached its terrifying conclusion. For the cost of a modest Moscow apartment, a threat born of consumer electronics and open-source code was about to challenge a $500 million defense network. This was not a battle of titans, but a chilling demonstration of how ingenuity could circumvent overwhelming power, reaching 750 kilometers across hostile territory to hold a nation's strategic nuclear forces hostage. For 6 hours, they had flown as ghosts. 17 Ukrainian OSA drones, little more than sophisticated plastic frames and electric motors, navigated the darkness not with the aid of billion-dollar satellites, but with the echoes of 20th century aviation. They flew without GPS, impervious to the jamming that would cripple more advanced systems. They flew without communication, a silent, uncoordinated pack that was, paradoxically, perfectly in sync. Their path was a meticulous exercise in dead reckoning, guided only by internal compasses and accelerometers, ticking off kilometers over a land that was determined to kill them. For the final 30 minutes of their journey, they flew without any human oversight at all, their digital minds committed to a single, unalterable purpose. Their target was the Engels Air Base, a critical nerve center for Russia's long-range aviation. Specifically, they sought the Kristall fuel depot, the lifeblood of the Tu-160 and Tu-95MS strategic bombers housed there. On the ground, this depot sat protected by one of the most formidable air defense networks ever conceived. The first and most powerful layer was an S-400 battery, a $500 million marvel of engineering positioned 3 kilometers northwest. On paper, it was an apex predator, designed to hunt and kill everything from stealth fighters at 400 kilometers to ballistic missiles in the upper atmosphere. Its 92 N6E fire control radar was a beast, capable of flooding the sky with enough energy to cook a meal at a distance. But the laws of physics are ruthlessly indifferent to marketing brochures. The drones were flying at a mere 50 meters, a whisper above the treetops. At this altitude, the curvature of the Earth itself became their shield, hiding them below the S-400's radar horizon until they were just 28 kilometers away. And tonight, conditions were even worse for the defenders. Ground clutter from buildings and trees, combined with temperature inversions that bent and scattered radar waves, effectively reduced that detection range to less than 20 kilometers. The S-400's powerful eye was looking down into a chaotic soup of electronic noise. It was like trying to spot a specific raindrop in a hurricane. By the time the drones might become visible, they would be less than 5 minutes from impact. Even if a blip appeared, the system's brain was unprepared. Its threat library, meticulously compiled over decades, contained the signatures of 10,000 hostile AR craft and missiles. It could identify an F-15 at a glance, or a terrain-hugging cruise missile in seconds. But a small plastic quadcopter with the radar signature of a large bird, moving at the leisurely pace of a Cessna, did not compute. The S-400's logic would classify such a contact as an anomaly, a ghost, or a low-priority clutter target, unworthy of a multi-million-dollar interceptor missile. Closer in, a second layer of defense stood guard. 4 Pantsir S-1 units, each a $15 million mobile fortress of missiles and cannons, were arranged in a ring around the depot. In promotional videos, they swat smart bombs from the sky with contemptuous ease. The reality, however, is governed by numbers. The Pantsir's engagement solution requires a target with a minimum radar cross-section of 0.1 square meters. The incoming OSA drones, made of composite materials that absorb rather than reflect radar waves, presented a signature of just 0.01 square meters, 10 times below the system's official threshold for a reliable lock. Hitting such a target with a radar-guided missile would be akin to trying to shoot a mosquito with a hunting rifle in the dark. It's theoretically possible, but practically a fool's errand. The final defense was electronic, Pole 21 GPS jammers blanketed the entire facility in a powerful electromagnetic bubble. The system worked by broadcasting false satellite signals, designed to convince any GPS-guided weapon that it was thousands of miles off course, lost somewhere over the Pacific. It was a brilliant defense against the West's precision munitions. But the OSA drones had no GPS to jam. They were navigating like ancient mariners, using a map and a compass. The Russians had brought a sophisticated computer virus to a knife fight. As the swarm closed, its collective intelligence came alive. The lead drone's thermal camera, a grainy 640 by 480 pixel eye, locked onto the heat signatures of the fuel depot. But this wasn't simple targeting. It was a deep, tactical analysis. The video feed was processed by a neural network trained on over 10,000 satellite images of this specific facility. The AI didn't just see tanks. It understood their layout, their pipe connections, their very nature. On its screen, 4 massive circles glowed a faint white against the cold earth. Its edge detection algorithm outlined each tank, assigning an identifier and running an instantaneous temperature analysis. Tank number 4 read 15.7 degrees Celsius. Tank number 7, 12.1 degrees. Tank number 12, 11.8 degrees. Tank number 1, 13.2 degrees. That 3.6 degree difference was the key. It told the AI that tank number 4 had been recently filled. This meant it had the highest vapor pressure, the most volatile air-to-fuel mixture in the space above the liquid. It was, in effect, the most explosive target. This is where the terrifying genius of the system revealed itself. There was no central command drone, no voting system, no master algorithm making the decision. Each of the 17 drones running the exact same software on its identical processor performed the same analysis independently. And all 17 reached the same, undeniable conclusion. Tank number 4 must be hit first. This distributed intelligence extended to the attack itself. To prevent mid-air collisions during the final dive, each drone added its unique serial number to its approach vector calculation. Drone 1 would attack from bearing 270, Drone 2 from 275. A precise 5-degree offset, creating a fan of attack paths that would saturate the target area with overlapping blast patterns, without ever interfering with one another. At 3 a.m. local time, as the drones flew into the final 30 kilometers, their hijacked Russian SIM cards strained for a signal. The connection flickered to a single bar, and then, at 3:02, it dropped to 0. In that instant, 17 drones simultaneously switched to full autonomous mode. The operators back in Ukraine were now just spectators. 17 explosive payloads were now locked on, guided by algorithms that could not be reasoned with, could not be bargained with, and could not be stopped. At 10 kilometers out, the swarm began to morph. The loose gaggle of AIR craft transformed into a complex, 3-dimensional attack matrix. It was a maneuver of cold, machine precision. 7 drones climbed to 80 meters, preparing for a steep dive to strike the thin steel of the tank roofs. 5 held their altitude at 50 meters. Their targets, the upper walls where the explosive vapor had collected. The final 5 descended to a perilous 30 meters, aiming for the lower sections, where the structural welds were most vulnerable to catastrophic failure. It was 3:03 when a lone radar operator on a Pantsir S1 console felt a cold chill run down his spine. A contact materialized on his screen, 8 kilometers out. Altitude 50 meters. Speed 151 kilometers per hour. His training screamed that this was wrong. It was too slow for a cruise missile, too fast and steady for a bird, and far too low for any authorized AR craft. He slewed his electro-optical turret toward the bearing, magnified the image, and switched to the thermal imager. A small, distinct heat signature glowed against the black terrain. 4 rotors, a central body. It was a drone, smaller than anything in his threat database. Then his blood ran cold. He saw another, and another, His mouth went dry as his mind struggled to process the sight. 17 contacts, spread across a 3-kilometer front. The range counter was spinning down like a clock to doom. 7 kilometers, 6.5. Impact in 130 seconds. There was no time for authorization. His thumb slammed down on the auto-engage button, overriding safety interlocks. The first 57 E-6 missile erupted from its tube in a torrent of fire, accelerating to nearly 3 times the speed of sound. It screamed toward the lead drone, a silver needle aimed at the heart of the swarm. But the target was a ghost in the electromagnetic spectrum. The missile's command receiver fought to maintain a lock on a radar return that flickered in and out of existence. At 2.1 kilometers from the drone, the missile's advanced proximity fuse made its final calculation. It was searching for the metallic mass and signature of an airplane or a missile. It found only a whisper. Deciding this was not a valid target, the fuse remained inert. The million-ruble missile tore past its target, missing by a mere 3 meters. The drone wobbled violently in its supersonic wake, but it was otherwise unharmed. The battery fired again. This time, the targeted drone executed a pre-programmed countermeasure. It popped up, climbing 20 meters in 2 seconds before diving sharply back toward the deck. The missile's guidance computer, programmed to predict the flight path of a conventional AR craft, lost the track completely. Another 1,000,000 rubles of precision engineering sailed harmlessly into the night. Across the depot, the other 3 Pantsir batteries opened fire. The sky erupted in a frantic, desperate firework display. Missiles chased phantom signals. Tracers from their twin 30mm cannons stitched golden arcs across the darkness. But hitting a drone-sized target at 3 kilometers with cannon fire is a statistical impossibility. The rounds self-destructed in puffs of black smoke, each one a small monument to failure. The operators faced a horrific choice. The cannon's high-explosive rounds were now aimed in the direction of their own fuel depot. A single stray round, a ricochet off the hard ground, could do the enemy's work for them. At 3:06, pure dumb luck intervened. A missile's proximity fuse, by sheer chance, caught a drone as it banked, presenting its largest possible cross-section. The warhead detonated, spraying 50,000 tungsten fragments through the air. The drone vaporized in an orange flash. 1 down, 16 to go. But it was too little, too late. The remaining drones were now inside 3 kilometers, well inside the minimum engagement range of the missiles. With machine-like dispassion, the swarm adjusted. The remaining drones spread out, forcing the gunners to divide their fire. They had lost a member, but not their purpose. The algorithms didn't mourn. They simply recalculated. At 3:07, the defensive fire slackened. Missile stocks were depleted, gun barrels were glowing red-hot, and the probability of a hit had fallen to single digits. The defenders could only watch in impotent horror as 16 dark shapes entered their final attack runs, each one locked immutably onto its designated piece of the depot. At exactly 3:08, the first drone struck. Its 3.2-kilogram shaped charge, an inverted copper cone, punched through the 8mm steel roof of tank number 4 as if it were paper. The warhead detonated a fraction of a second later, deep inside the vapor space above 2,000 tons of jet fuel. The physics of what happened next were both beautiful and apocalyptic. The detonation created a pressure wave that traveled at 2,800 meters per second through the fuel-air mixture. This was not a fire, it was a detonation. It converted liquid fuel into expanding gas faster than the tank could possibly contain it. The roof did not blow off. It was transformed into a 15-ton steel disc, spinning lazily into the sky before crashing down 200 meters away. The walls of tank number 4 peeled open like a grotesque flower, releasing a tsunami of burning fuel that instantly overwhelmed the containment basin. Seconds later, the second drone hit tank number 1, then tank number 7, then tank number 12. Each strike was perfectly timed to achieve maximum cascading failure. The depot's automated fire suppression system activated, heroically pumping foam at a rate of 10,000 liters per minute. It was like spitting on a volcano. The entire foam supply was exhausted in 90 seconds, having done almost nothing to quell the inferno. The radiant heat became unimaginable, igniting wood from 100 meters away. Fire trucks were forced to stop half a kilometer out, their paint blistering, their crews watching helplessly as the heart of the fire burned with an intensity that defied all their training and equipment. At 3:18 a.m., tank number 6, cooked by the surrounding fires, suffered a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. A bleave. The entire tank did not burn. It detonated, sending a mushroom cloud of fire and smoke thousands of feet into the air, a final, terrible punctuation mark on the attack. This was not just any fuel. It was the specialized, low-temperature blend required for Russia's Tu-160 and Tu-95MS strategic bomber fleet, its chemical additives irreplaceable with standard kerosene. The attack hadn't just destroyed a fuel depot. It had reached 750 kilometers into the heart of Russia and effectively grounded its nuclear-capable bomber force. In war rooms and air bases from Murmansk to Vladivostok, commanders were now facing a terrifying new calculation. If a swarm of plastic drones can fly this far undetected, and Moscow is only a few hundred kilometers further, what comes next? This is Goba. Subscribe for real-time battlefield updates and strategic insights.